we don't think that there's any really good use cases, I guess, for BTC at this point. And so
I also think that DeFi for Bitcoin is going to grow just a lot because there's going to be just underlying demand for it.
And I think no one's really nailed payments yet. And if you don't nail payments, then like, what else, what else are you doing here?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the DeFi podcast. Today is Thursday, July 3rd, right before a long, beautiful 4th of July weekend. And we are very lucky to have with us a very special person from the Avalanche community, XL Baller. XL, how are you doing, man?
Doing good. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but Rhett and JF, who are both here with me today, have also eagerly been waiting for this episode. We had the pleasure of meeting you at a couple Avalanche events, and want to get into your background and one of the things that you're working on, sadly, in a little bit. But first, let's just do a very short market update. Not that much to talk about. S&P is up something like 2% in the past week since the last podcast. We're pushing through all-time highs today on a stronger than expected jobs report. Unemployment fell to 4% or 4.1%, which was lower than expectations. And the economy added about 150,000 jobs, which was higher than expected. Bitcoin is doing well, kind of reclaimed 110K, but it's not really outpacing the S&P yet, which is kind of what we want to see. So, it's kind of performing in tandem with the S&P. That's fine. All risk assets are moving higher. That's good for crypto. The biggest gainers of the past week are, a lot of coins with mimetic value like Bonk, Fartcoin, Whiff. Those are all up about 20 or 25%. Virtuals continues to lead the way as we've been talking about in previous pods for AI meme coins, up about 15%. Jupiter on Solana has done really well this past week, up 15%. And Arbitrum is actually up a decent chunk, like 10 or 15% on the back of the Robinhood adopting or using Arbitrum for its Robinhood chain. So that's kind of quick market update. Have you guys been following the markets at all, or have you guys had your kind of heads down building? What have you guys been up to?
I always followed it a little bit. I think ETH had a big single day uptick yesterday that a lot of the others joined in. Bitcoin not quite so much, but I noticed SBET, which is like the MicroStrategy for ETH, had a huge spike because it's kind of a levered ETH bet. I kind of expect there to be more of that over time, where there's a ton of Bitcoin treasury companies now. Now there's a couple of ETH ones, or that one main one live. I've heard rumors there might be a few more. I'm guessing most major crypto tokens end up having some kind of treasury company. And those could, those are getting pretty interesting. I think there's also some risk they could introduce to the market. But yeah, so far that one had a really big spike relative to ETH. So I think that was interesting. And I think that's kind of indicative of how you might expect these treasury stocks to do.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, but there's a treasury company that's going to start buying treasury company stock, which I heard that. And as someone who has PTSD from the housing crisis, I immediately thought of CDO squareds. So I'm like, oh my God, are we going down this path again? I don't know. I guess I need to spend some time looking at it. But SBET has done pretty well, but it's obviously still down a lot from the all-time highs. I mean, I feel like I should buy it just as a bet on on Lubin. But I don't know.
They are doing some things relative to MicroStrategy that are very interesting, because MicroStrategy, it's all financial engineering. It's just get really good terms on bonds, buy Bitcoin, done. Here, you issue bonds to buy ETH. That's great, but then they're taking that ETH and earning yield on it via staking in DeFi. That's a nice additional thing. And then they've hinted at these other things where they'll tokenize some of the equity so you can buy it on chain, and then they'll have some token gated benefits. So only those who own the tokenized equity get certain benefits. Some of those things are really, I think, to me, way more interesting than what MicroStrategy is doing, and could lead the way for some of these other strategy companies to do interesting things. So that piece, I think, is really interesting. I'm a big fan of Lubin as well. I think he's done a lot for the space.
Yeah, JF, XL, any thoughts on markets, or you guys want to move on?
I mean, Bitcoin just continues to dominate. And I think we're just going to see that throughout the rest of the year. Eventually we get an alt cycle. Eventually ETH will have it shine, and that should trickle down a little bit. But this has definitely been a Bitcoin dominant cycle ever since the halving.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so listen, let's transition now and just chat a little bit about XL. XL, obviously, we've all been aware of you on crypto Twitter as an Avalanche kind of mainstay and presence for a long time. I don't remember exactly when I first followed you and like how you ended up on our radar, but you've done a lot of stuff in Avalanche and beyond. Could you just talk a little bit about like to the extent that you're comfortable, your background and how you ended up in crypto and was drawn to Avalanche?
Yeah, I'll won't make a long story long, but yeah, I got into crypto in 2019. I had a buddy of mine who did really well um, back in the ICO boom back in 2017. At the time, I was just getting on my feet as an attorney, and I have a background in accounting. I'm a lawyer, trial lawyer. I still practice. And 2019 rolls around, and I started stacking Sats and buying Bitcoin, and then as that year progressed, I kind of started to explore a little bit more and understand about smart contracts. And I was like, wow, we can actually, automate all of these, financial processes through smart contracts. So then I started stacking Sats and ETH. And then from there, I kind of just started going a little bit more further down the risk curve and, tried stuff on Polygons, tried stuff on Binance, was pretty early on Solana as well. And then I saw on Twitter, I didn't really have a Twitter presence then, but in like spring of 2021, I started seeing tweets about Avalanche. And I bridged over the summer of 2021 and I was like, wow, this is like using ETH mainnet, using an EVM, except it's way faster, it's way cheaper. There's a lot of opportunities here. And so I think by like September of that year, I had moved all my funds, all my yield farms and everything off of mainnet. And I've been pretty much on Avalanche since then. Yeah, like I've reached out and explored some things. Been part of a couple different teams, done some advising for people, but now I've kind of come full circle with Satly, and so I'm back to my Bitcoin ways and trying to find a way to spread the word about Bitcoin and build something that people can use for it. So.
Okay, okay, great. So pause 1 second. Before we move on to Sally, there's one other question I want to ask you because, I know a lot of people who were drawn into Avalanche basically spring of 2021 and kind of have stuck around since then, but not everyone has such a strong online presence, right? So is that something that you consciously decided to do or you were just tweeting for fun and you ended up having a following? Did you put effort into it? Like, did you build, like, how did that happen?
I did not ever intend to have the following that I have at all. It was kind of like, if I'm going to spend like time and money in this place, I want to have like meet like-minded people because like, as you guys, I'm sure know, like there's probably not a ton of people in real life that you deal with daily that you can talk about crypto stuff. Whether it's like for example, I was talking to before I got on here today, I was trying to talk to my barber about like Bitcoin and what a distributed ledger is and distributed systems. And he just could not get it. And it's just because of like a lack of education. Right. But
or that he has like he does honest work for a living and we're just gamblers, degenerate gamblers, right? Yeah.
Well, that could be true too, but I think we're trying to change things for the time. But as far as my online presence go, I kind of have like a stream of consciousness way of tweeting. I don't plan it out. I don't pick a certain time of day. I don't pick a certain topic. I just kind of tweet what's on my mind and my takes. And then over the years, I think people started to take notice of that. And, since then I've been invited out to Summit to speak. I've been asked to be on different teams. I don't take all of those opportunities, but if it's something I think that's worthwhile, I'll do it. And I think for me now, I just want to continue to grow the Avalanche ecosystem. There's a lot of companies and blockchains that were around last cycle that aren't around anymore. But Avalanche has like stayed its course. And I mean, I'm just really happy to be where I am in the chain and with the community that I have. So.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the teams that really stick around in crypto. Like you go back 2 or 3, 4 years, like a lot of teams 5 years ago, like you pick a team, most likely they're not around anymore, right? Avalanche is still as strong as it was, and they're still shipping like really good technical upgrades and they have great business, like it's just, I love, spending time learning about teams that have just stuck around for a long time and are in it for the long haul,
Yeah, I think they set a standard like it's the Avalabs level. I mean, every vertical they have qualified like good people running each individual like vertical or department, and it's like, they really operate things, I think, for the best of the community and the best of the chain and the best of like crypto as a whole. So, I mean, they've set a standard and it's hard to find it anywhere else that you go. So like, don't get me wrong. Like I will try other chains and do other things, but like Avalanche is definitely home.
Got it. Okay. And there's, I know for a long time in the Avalanche community, there's been this push to, essentially make some sort of a Bitcoin L1. There's been different versions of it, different people involved, different, structures have been floated. But that's why I was really excited to talk to you today, because when we met at this last summit in London, you told us you were working on Satly, which is, anyway, I don't want to steal your thunder, but yeah, could you talk a little bit about what is Satly? What's your vision for it? What's going on with it right now, et cetera?
Yeah, Satly is an L1 launched on Avalanche. Right now, we're currently on testnet. We've been on testnet for about 3 months, I think. This was an idea that my co-founder and I, Chris Fusillo, a lot of people know him from, he developed Excova, which is a payment rails for stablecoins. And we talked about this actually last May at Consensus in Austin, just about how we needed that. We needed a Bitcoin chain. And then what we were going to start working on things last year, but we were kind of like, let's wait until the Edna upgrades go live. Let's wait till Octane goes live and get past all those ACPs to where it's not only more affordable, but it's also, we have all the upgrades that we can use to our benefit as well. And I'm glad that we did it that way. So the chain went live about 3 months ago.
The testnet chain, right? Yeah.
Testnet chain. Yeah. So we're on testnet now. So there's Satly, the chain, where BTCB is the native gas token. So all economic transactions are done in BTC. In the future, once we go live to proof of stake, obviously we'll roll out like a dual token type of model where that other token will also be staked in addition to BTC for validators. And it'll be more of a governance token at that point.
So just so people know, what is the URL for the thing is like what is it? I have it here, beta.satly.com, right?
Yeah, you can just go satly.com and it'll pull up the beta.
Okay. Yeah. And what's really cool about it is you can mess around with this thing without having any wallet at all, right? Like I think you can literally pull up Safari and just use your email and start messing around on testnet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So satly.com, so there's Satly the L1 and satly.com. So Chris and I, we were thinking like, we were going to do Bitcoin L1 and then satly.com would kind of be the front end for it. Because a lot of chains don't really have like a front end, so to speak, since it's open source. But since then we've scrapped the Bitcoin L1 name, and it's all just under the Satly brand. So what I'm obviously excited about the chain itself, but what I'm more excited about it is Satly.com as a payment rails for BTC, and that kind of like that's what gets me excited. What Chris has been able to do so you can email Bitcoin to people, right? So kind of like you were saying. You can set up an account. As soon as you set up your email, all of the crypto stuff is abstracted away. Like you get an EVM wallet right away. You can top up your wallet with Test BTC. And I could grab any of you guys' email address. I know you're signed up, Bill, because you signed up at Summit. But I could just literally send an email, and that BTC that I send will sit over in an escrow account. The person checks their email, clicks claim. As soon as they click claim and set their account up, that BTC is deposited into their EVM wallet, out of the escrow wallet. And then now you have a new user. And since we went live about a week before Summit, so it's been about 3.5 to 4 weeks now, we've got over 2,500 users on Satly. So people are liking the ease of onboarding to crypto just by being able to send an email to someone.
That's nice UX, and I'm guessing it's also ultra cheap from like a gas fees perspective, which is also a big deal. As someone, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, what Chris and I want to do is we don't think that there's any really good like use cases, I guess, for BTC at this point. And so, like, from a chain perspective, we wanted to create a Bitcoin native gas Bitcoin L1 and create an environment for projects that want to come launch on the chain. So we've done that on testnet now. We've got like a couple NFT games. We've got a casino up there. We've got a DEX up there. You can deploy whatever you want to the testnet. But what Chris and I are focusing on, instead of getting so focused on like doing BD to bring in all these teams to the chain right now, we're focusing on making the best payment rails experience. And, we've got some cool things lined up, not only with being able to email people. We're working on SMS, so you'll be able to text people just like with Apple Pay to set up their account. So their phone number and email will be attached to an EVM address. We're sourcing Bitcoin wallets from a third party, so you can also opt to have a Bitcoin wallet. So it feels just like you're using Bitcoin network, right? And then we've also been in talks with other companies about doing a BTCB credit card as well. So like we can cover the entire line of payments, whether it's IRL, whether you're using your phone. That's kind of where we're at as far as the next couple months.
That's awesome. I think these crypto credit cards are getting a lot of traction. So I think that actually could be a high demand product. And I think it's smart for you guys to try to create this really nice payments UX. From my perspective as someone who's kind of longtime DeFi obsessed, I think it's a really good choice to have it be EVM because, you know, what I'm most excited about for this is like more opportunities to use Bitcoin productively in DeFi. Given it's EVM and most, you know, DeFi applications are EVM, it'll be pretty easy for people to come over, build on their, plug into the BTCB deposits. If there's, native yield from gas fees on, say, liquid staked Bitcoin, that gets really interesting for DeFi as well. So I think, in my view, there's a lot of opportunity there too. And I think wise choice to have it be EVM. And so it sounds like that's probably not your first priority, but how do you guys think about that long term?
We absolutely want to have DeFi there. Here's the thing, like this is the way I explained it to Chris. Like I want a grandma to be able to log into her Satly account and send her grandson BTC for his birthday, just like she sends an email. I want her to be able to log right into her app and say, oh, I've got 0.1 BTC. I got 10 grand that I want to park somewhere. Okay, I can click the Avant staking tab and immediately stake my BTC. Or, say you want to delegate to one of the nodes or validators, there'll be a delegation option there as well. Like we want to take all the complexity of like self-custody and stuff and just put it all behind the scenes. And I think a lot of that was inspired through like what you see with the Arena app as well. Like you can just set up an Arena app with your Twitter, automatically creates an EVM wallet. You can automatically swap. You can automatically do things in a social way. We wanted to do that for BTC. And so DeFi is definitely going to be a big part of that.
Okay. And if you're like, sorry, go ahead. No, you ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I was going to maybe change the topic a bit. So I was going to ask like from a technical perspective, like how do you think about Lightning Network versus what you're building?
Well, Lightning Network's not even on chain. This will be on its own Avalanche L1. Like a lot of the solutions that are out there, I don't even know if you'd classify them as an L2. And one of the questions, that we've got was like, well, where does the transaction settle? Like people couldn't wrap their mind around the fact that this is its own L1 where BTC is a native token. They're thinking, okay, it's got to settle on Lightning or it's got to settle on, Stacks or like RSK or one of these other L2s. And then it's got to go through just like Arbitrum. Like, there's like a 16-hour process for your transaction to be final. And then it's got to settle back to Bitcoin, go through a sequencer. Ours of settlement is instantly because we're using Avalanche tech. And then as far as your balance goes, when you go back over to the Bitcoin network, it'll settle there as well. I mean, well, as long as it takes for Bitcoin network to settle. So like, yeah, from a technical perspective, like one, we're on our own chain. I think that first and foremost is the most important thing. And, it will be decentralized to the extent that it makes sense for our validators, but, it's faster, it's cheaper than Lightning Network as well. And the complaints about Lightning that I've heard is you have to constantly like their UX is not very friendly, right? It's like we can beat all that just by having a good UX. And so the way that we look at it is if we've got I hate to use the word, but if we have bridges from these different chains and networks directly to ours, then I think we can take a lot of that capital and be able to put it to good use on our chain.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up question? Let me just ask a real quick one. So let's say I'm a Bitcoin OG, like I love everything to be on Bitcoin, right? And you have my email address and you're like, hey, I'm going to send Bill some Bitcoin, but I'm going to do it on the Satly L1, right? So you have my email address, you send me some Bitcoin on the Satly L1 and I receive an email, hey, Bill, you received Bitcoin from XL. I click on it and I see it there and I'm like, okay, I have some Bitcoin here. I want to move it back to the main Bitcoin chain, right? What happens? What's the functionality that gets it there?
So you guys are familiar with the Bitcoin to Avalanche bridge. And this goes back to the push that you were talking about. Avalanche needed look, there's $500 million parked on that Avalanche bridge as we sit here right now. I looked it up before we got on. It's like 4,900 Bitcoin roughly. People want to do stuff with their BTC. You just bridge it straight off of there to there, straight back to Bitcoin network. We'll have the ability obviously to go to and from Coinbase, to and from these, maybe like these other centralized exchanges. But to answer your question directly, if you have a wallet that you want to send it to over there, you just send it right back over through the bridge. We abstract all that away.
Got it. So right now there's a bridge that's maintained by the Avalabs team and some others that uses SGX to transfer Bitcoin from the OG Bitcoin network to the Avalanche C chain and BTC.B. And you're saying that with Satly, it'll be very easy if someone sends you Bitcoin and you don't want to keep it there for some reason, you want to put it in cold storage or whatever, it's going to be very easy to transfer it over that Avalabs bridge back to the original Bitcoin network.
That's right. And for the Bitcoiners that are listening, we have these guys in mind. Like, we understand that, Bitcoin has been around the longest. It's got more uptime and security. It's more decentralized than any other chain that's out there right now. And it's been that way since inception. So we realize there's a lot of people who don't ever want to leave that chain. But I think, those may not be necessarily the people that we're talking to, but we want to make it feel like when you come to the chain that you're getting all the benefits of being on the Bitcoin network, but you're also getting all the benefits of smart contracts and the tech that's available on Avalanche. And so the bridge is just one of those things.
Yeah, just a short anecdote, and then Rhett, I'll hand it off to you real quick. Is I was helping someone at my jiu-jitsu academy move assets from Coinbase to Gemini. He doesn't like Coinbase for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, so he has Bitcoin there, and he's like, "How do I move it?" And he wanted to move it on the Bitcoin network, and I was like, "Okay, let's do it." But let's try $100 worth first. So we sent $100, like I went through all the steps and I said, okay, here's yours. And I initiated the transaction, and then like 30 sweaty minutes later, like it still hasn't arrived. I'm like, all right, I'm like, okay, like maybe just for this time, like let's take the remaining balance, let's sell it, move it to the bank, and it just takes such a long time, whereas like you use Satly, like boom, it's instant. It's so beautiful. It's like that same moment you were talking about in spring of 2021, when you went from Ethereum mainnet to Avalanche C chain, and you just felt the difference. Is the same right now. It's the same thing with Bitcoin network and Satly. I mean, of course, they're different risk profiles, et cetera, but it just feels like a totally different experience,
It is, and I think that goes back to what JF was talking about with these other options that are available, like with Lightning, RSK is the other one that's pretty popular, Stacks. Like, these other ones have slow finality, like you're talking about. Those ecosystems are kind of isolated to that chain, whereas all the chains on Avalanche are interoperable. They all work as one. You have certain centralization risks with having a sequencer, like UX issues with like failed payments, liquidity issues. I mean, I think we solve all of those. That's what we end up doing. That's why we have been kind of like laying low, just so focused on getting a good product together. We haven't really put too many feelers out there about raises or how all that's going to play out. We've just been trying to make the best product that we can, and then it'll speak for itself once it goes live.
Cool. All right, Rhett, did you want to, I stepped over your toes there for a second. You want to say anything, or are you okay?
Oh, all good. I was just going to make a comment about Lightning, but a separate kind of question, and there may be some decisions to be made here. But I'm curious how the dual staking model will look. Is there, how do you think about, just kind of how will the mechanics work and the rewards, et cetera? And then also, what would be, what's the desire, as far as the mix of how much Bitcoin is staked versus the Satly Gov token?
Well, we obviously would love for it to be, BTC to be the end all be all for staking, but, Michael Saylor could sweep in and take our chain over if we did it that way. So we've got to have a dual staking model. Right now, it would just be a governance token. I mean, Chris and I are trying to explore different ways to go about adding more use case to that token. Whether it's if you bridge over, you can mint the governance token with BTC. So TVL would increase and you've got a 1-for-1 exchange. There's just some different ideas we've had. We haven't. So I'll tell you this, our intention is we're going to get Satly.com, this payment processor up and running, probably on C chain within the next month, so people can experiment with it for real. And then I'd say we'll do that for a couple months, and our roadmap kind of looks like end of August, early September. We'll go ahead and deploy to proof of authority network and migrate those users over to Satly L1. So it'll be fully on its own chain at that point. We'll probably run that from 4 to 6 months. And at that point, we'll transfer over to a proof of stake and open it up for opportunities for people to run a node or buy nodes or get a validator. And that's looking like, I guess that would put us probably like at the beginning of year, like that's when the TG will happen and all that. So we're still ironing out all the details on our tokenomics, but essentially like the long and short of it is you run a validator, you will stake your governance token in part and BTC in part, and you will get paid from transaction fees in validating the chain in BTC and the governance token as well. My biggest fear, and I might as well just put it out there now, my biggest fear is us ending up like an Arbitrum or an Optimism. Like we don't want to just launch a governance token just for the sake of doing it. We would like there to be some other use case behind it. And you want to avoid like token leakages and all that, type of stuff. So we want a sustainable ecosystem where validators are like rewarded for it and it's worth their time to do it. So.
Yeah, I know some of these L1s have been grappling with the same issue. Like, essentially like you want your own chain where the traffic is isolated so it's not affected by something happening on another chain. Gas doesn't spike for some reason exogenous to your project. So you have some amount of control, but you're able to still tap into the liquidity of C chain and all the other chains, right? So like, what is the correct model? Is it have a governance token similar to AVAX, not a governance, sorry, like a proof of stake token similar to AVAX? Is it you have just nodes? Is it you just stake BTC? Like, what is it? Which one of these models is it? But I think you're taking the right approach, which is like, let's just work on making a cool product that people actually find useful first, and then figure out the tokenomics or L1 structure later. I think that's definitely the right approach.
Yeah. And it's not so that kind of goes back to so right now we have like an app store in Satly. Like you click the app button at the bottom and, you've got LFJ in there, you've got like Furdy Fish, you've got small run NFTs, you've got Pangolin, you've got Salvor. Those are all kind of placeholders for the idea that it would be a front end for the chain, and you can find these whitelisted projects if you go to Satly.com. I told Chris, I was like, I think we should scrap that. I think we need to get really good at doing the same kick 10,000 times, which is payments. You can deploy whatever you want to our chain, but we don't need to be in the business of, I don't need to go, onboard builders from, Stacks or RSK to come build on our chain because of some opportunity. If they see the value in doing it, then great. But like, let's roll out a product. Like we need our own chain because we think we're going to have enough people doing transactions on Satly for us to need our own chain. And so let's focus really on being the best at payments. Let's cover the entire, let's do e-commerce where you can do like a Satly widget at your barber and go pay with Satly. Let's do like an IRL card, something you can get in your phone, like your Apple Wallet or Android wallet. Let's get Satly in the App Store. Let's get it in iOS and Android, and like really focus on what we know that we're good at. And that's been like our focus for the last like month.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because like there's all these people who are trying to adopt Bitcoin as payment. And again, like you want to pay for your barber with Bitcoin on the main network right now, it's going to be a sweaty experience, right? It's not great.
Yeah, you'll be sitting there. Like if I had to pay with Bitcoin, I wouldn't have made it at my barber. I wouldn't have made it to this meeting on time. Like I'd be sitting there waiting for it to go through. Right. So, we look at it kind of like we have 3 different people that we want to approach. And that's like, obviously users, we want validators, and we want, teams to launch on the chain. Like those are kind of the 3 people that we're going at. And I think just recently, I think I calmed us down a little bit and said, like, let's just focus on our users first. Let's get a really good product. Let's get them using it. And then once it's time to talk with validators about validating the chain and what makes sense and tokenomics model, then we'll do that probably like the end of this quarter. And then if anyone wants to come launch on the chain, obviously you can deploy to Satly L1 if you want to, but let's not make that our focus trying to onboard new teams to the chain.
Yeah, it's funny how a lot of people in crypto, founders and others, just agonize over tokenomics. And maybe agonize over product, like get people using, build something that is actually making people's lives better, and then everything else will sort of work out. Obviously, yeah, there's such a thing as good and bad tokenomics, but I like the approach of not focusing on that initially and focusing on actually.
Man, and this isn't a knock on anybody out there, because everybody has a different approach. But you see a lot of teams, like you just see a lot of talk and like a lot of money being thrown around at things where there is no product. And so we're like, let's just do this. Let's do the opposite of that. The way that makes more sense to us is, like you said, focus on the product, and the money and the tokenomics and all that will take care of itself. So,
okay. So this is a price chart, Bitcoin versus ETH, BTC versus ETH.
Since when?
USD
Since when? I can't read that.
For about 24 months. So a little bit over. So it's like 25 months. So ETH up 35%, BTC up 290%. I guess two questions. Why is this happening, and what is the significance?
On why Bitcoin continues to dominate?
Yeah. Why are we seeing such a divergence between these two assets? I'm curious to get everyone's take on this. Yeah.
My take on it is it's just the most trusted cryptocurrency. It's the most accepted. It's got the most uptime. It's the most decentralized. It's stood the test of time. And that store of value narrative, like, this is something I think about all the time. The store of value narrative, that is what drives Bitcoin's value. In the way that the halving mechanism is set up, the way that rewards are cut in half every 4 years or whatever, like that all just falls behind the store of value narrative. I mean, it's the only truly like decentralized fixed supply digital asset that's out there. And people have really bought into that. I think, Chris and I, our job and our goal, I guess, so to speak, is to create an environment where people are wanting to do things with their BTC other than just hold on to it. I'm of the opinion that BTC doesn't really have like they sound cliche, but like the killer app yet. And I think no one's really nailed payments yet. And if you don't nail payments, then like, what else are you doing here? So, I think at the outset, payments is going to be the most important thing. Like, of course, people can like, come to the chain and do, they can pair their BTC against like Fartcoin or whatever, or like they can buy NFTs with their BTC. But I think if you don't nail payments, then, that's the next step to adoption. Like if grandma can't send her grandson BTC without having to pull out a ledger, cold storage, and wait an hour to get it done, then what are we doing? So I think that's go ahead.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this topic, I have a lot to say, but I'll keep it short, which is like Rhett and I have talked about this at length, but if you go talk to the random person on the street and ask them about crypto, like most people are like, oh, Bitcoin, like they don't even it sounds foreign to us because we're looking at crypto all day long. But there are many people out there who don't even know Ethereum or any of the other coins exist, right? There's just Bitcoin. The brand name recognition for BTC is just off the charts. It's just way, way ahead, right? And so like there's this huge group of people that are like being told, okay, you need to allocate 1, 2, maybe up to 5% of your portfolio in crypto. It just means Bitcoin. And like if you look at the first 30 days, or I think the first 30 or first 90 days of flows into the ETFs for BTC, it was greater than the first 30 or the first 90 days for all ETFs that ever launched priorly combined. Like it was just insane, the amount of inflows, right? So like if you're wanting to buy crypto, most people just buy Bitcoin. And then if you move over to the second camp, people who are a bit more, risk tolerant, as soon as you say, okay, what else is there besides Bitcoin? There's just an ocean of different things to buy. And yeah, some of them will buy Ethereum, right? For sure. And I love Ethereum. I think like it has so many smart, motivated people working there, like in that community. But there's just a lot of options. So as you slide down the risk curve, like, your attention gets split between Ethereum and a whole bunch of other things. So the idea that, like as people shift into being more accepting of buying crypto from the retail side, like, of course, BTC is going to take the lion's share of the attention at first. And then it depends on, which cryptocurrencies can carve out a niche aside from the, store of value narrative, right? And don't bet against Ethereum like that. If you look at you kind of looked at it in a different way, JF. charting both of them. But if you look at the ETH BTC chart, like the ratio, it's just really depressing to look at as an ETH holder. I mean, it has kind of done a little bit better in the last couple months, which is nice to see. But yeah, we're definitely rooting for it to do better. And I think it'll happen. It's just there's just so much creativity and really smart people in the community that it's going to get better. Just got to give it time.
I love that explanation. I think you and I were kind of saying the same thing in just two different ways. It's Bitcoin, crypto for the longest time, it's a scam, it's a fraud, and it's actually none of that. And now that people are accepting it, they're like, okay, well, crypto's still risky, it's very volatile, so I'm going to go with the best one. And I don't think that changes from like your neighbor that knows nothing about it versus like these politicians and the Trump administration, like them being accepting of it. They're going to start with Bitcoin, and to me that's what makes the most sense. There's also a lot more, I think, lobbying for Bitcoin than maybe there are some other, I guess we'll call them altcoins too.
I think a couple of other factors here. One, I think the Bitcoin treasury companies have had a pretty notable impact on Bitcoin, and they haven't really shown up in the same way for other assets yet. Like if you look at like the net buy pressure that Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy has created, it's a lot, and they're tapping into a very different source of funds. Like the people who are basically buying their bonds that they're using to buy Bitcoin with are not people who would have otherwise opened up a Coinbase account and bought crypto. And so they've tapped into that. I think that has like a real positive effect. And the other thing I think that does happen too is to some extent, I think sometimes price begets price once you get back beyond a certain threshold. Like there's a lot of people who take Bitcoin seriously because it has a high enough market cap. And I have a friend who's more he's more into things like ETH than Bitcoin, but he was telling me recently, he's like, well, I bought some Bitcoin because he's like, well, I think these other things are more useful in things. He's like Bitcoin is the one that I'm more confident other people are going to appreciate because they recognize that it's big enough. Some of those things, it's de-risked more. And so that kind of creates some momentum as well once you get beyond the threshold that really only Bitcoin's gotten past at this point.
I think my point of view on all this is maybe a little bit different, although I'm not sure you guys will disagree with me. We'll see. But I think the world needs like alternative assets. So we've always had gold, and there's a hunger in finance for having something else. And Bitcoin's just been really disciplined, maybe because they have no other pitch, but they have been disciplined in just spewing out this very specific narrative that this is money, this is a store of value. And I think that's just been accepted in TradFi. And it's something that I sensed when we were at Bitcoin 2025, just the types of people that were there. It was more like TradFi. It was older age groups than Consensus or other conferences. And yeah, I think this is just becoming a real asset class in finance because the Bitcoin crowd's just been very, very clear that, hey, this is money. And I think this is personally where other blockchains are failing because they have all these other pitches that they can do. So it's like amazing tech and we can, it's maybe like sort of oil and like it's like gas for lubricating the, all exciting sort of narratives. But really the best narrative for this type of token, if you want price to go up, is to actually pitch it as money. Because if it's money, it doesn't even need to be tied to the underlying economic model. The price can be anything. So it's whatever that asset class wants to take in, that's going to be reflected in token price, which can be sort of like almost infinite. The same way that like it doesn't cost anything to make a $1 bill almost, but we price it at $1, and then you'll take the same $1 bill that costs, let's say, a quarter of a cent to make, and you'll price it at 100 if it says 100 on it, right? Like the base value and the actual trading value are just not related at all. And yeah, I think that's where Bitcoin's been successful.
Can I ask a question about the Bitcoin, like the doing stuff with your Bitcoin arena for Rhett and JF? Because I know you guys, XL, you were talking about how one thing you would like to have like in the app store is like, hey, you have Bitcoin on Satly, kind of like you had dollars on Venmo. You'd be like, hey, just put it in Avant and earn some yield on it, right? So I know Rhett and JF, you guys have kind of been exploring this area of getting yield on your Bitcoin. Could you talk about a few of those sources? Like, I don't know, to what what extent you've looked at it, but like Babylon or Stacks or, doing stuff with it in DeFi yourself. Like what's just rough numbers? What are some ways that you can earn and like numbers that what people can get with Bitcoin if they're willing to just, move it away from cold storage, basically?
Yeah, good question. So Avant obviously has a yield-bearing Bitcoin product currently, which we personally, like our team thinks is very synergistic with the vision of Satly. You think about dollars, people want to be able to transact with their dollars and then park some of their dollars in like a high-yield savings account. So you think about that similarly here, where it's like, okay, some of your Bitcoin you want to be transacting with potentially, and then some other amount, just parked into its most productive place. So AVBTC, it's minted from BTCB, and then that goes into a basket of DeFi-based yield generating strategies. You kind of touched on a few. So Babylon, which is akin to like eigenlayer restaking, but mostly for Bitcoin. Right now, the number of people who are like, utilizing that Bitcoin for economic security is kind of low. So it's mostly points you're earning, and the points aren't super valuable. So that's not a place that we currently are generating yield. But I think that if desire to tap into Bitcoin for economic security grows, that could be really interesting. That's kind of more right now. It's more just kind of points incentive sort of kind of source of yield. By far the best source of yield that we're finding right now is basically using Bitcoin as collateral to run like stablecoin strategies. So you post Bitcoin collateral, borrow stables, run stable strategies, and then you kind of earn a difference between your borrow cost and what you're able to earn there. And you can get some pretty nice single digit yields, which on Bitcoin is really attractive. I think over time, there's going to be more opportunities. There are a few already, but speaking to Excel and Satly, if that chain gets a lot of usage, then maybe a Satly liquid staked Bitcoin is going to be generating a lot of yield in just Bitcoin denominated gas fees, which is a really nice source of yield. And then you could layer these on top of each other, right? Where you could hold Satly BTC, use that as collateral to borrow stables, and you're running stable strategies and you're getting the Satly underlying yield. So those are some of the sorts of yields that we're seeing right now. And I think that the world of Bitcoin DeFi will grow over time. I think it's interesting as someone who's really DeFi focused. It is interesting how Bitcoin is so large, market cap wise and recognition wise relative to other assets, but its adoption in DeFi is actually really small right now. I think that will grow over time. But right now, if you want to do DeFi things, there's a million things you can do with stablecoins. There's a million things you can do with ETH. There's a lot of things you can do with AVAX. Bitcoin is actually pretty small, but growing. So I think we think there's like a lot of opportunity there, that the amount of things you can do with Bitcoin in DeFi is going to grow over time. And we kind of think that a lot of people are going to want to be able to park at least some of their Bitcoin in some yield generating product.
Yeah. And, like to maybe follow on like my earlier point about like Bitcoin 2025 and this sort of new type of holder. I think previously you had a type of holder that was philosophical and didn't want to go off chain, right? Like they were like, hey, it's not real Bitcoin if it's bridge, it's not real Bitcoin if this, if not. But now that you're seeing, I think, adoption by, let's call them more mature type of traders, or like just a different type of holder that is more of a financial actor, I don't think that anyone cares about this. It is much more about, hey, I want to make my assets productive as I can. So I also think that DeFi for Bitcoin is going to grow just a lot because there's going to be just underlying demand for it.
Yeah, there's kind of goes back to what you were saying too. Like if we're Bitcoin does such a good job of saying that Bitcoin is money. And then these are all things that you do with your money, right? As far as like being able to do DeFi with it, buy things with it. And so I think, I just think the more that we get, more adoption that it gets, like people are going to want to do things with it. And that's kind of like our goal with Satly is to just create an environment where you can do things with it.
Yeah, well, this is a random thought, but one idea I had just from personal experience is like, if you could onboard people who want to move a large amount of Bitcoin, but they can do it in small chunks because the network is so fast and it's going to be so cheap to transact then versus Bitcoin. Like you can basically like at any one moment, you're only going to risk like $100 worth, but it's going to settle like almost instantly. And then you can, like as you get more comfortable, you can increase the amount that you move or something like, like there's got to be people out there who are moving around Bitcoin from chain, and it's like actually an issue, like in terms of cost and time. Just onboarding a few of those people onto, like a Satley type L1, and then the word gets out, I think could be like a big game changer.
You could do like a TWAP transfer where it's like, it just sends out a little bit, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, you hear some stories about, I won't name names, but some exchanges moving around like hundreds of millions of dollars at a time. You're like, dude, man, like what happens if someone I'm sure they have like safety, protocols and stuff, but still I hear that stuff and I always kind of like have a bit of a heart attack hearing like people moving $100 million transactions at a time. Why not just piecemeal it in some sort of a transfer TWAP like you're talking about, right? That's maybe another potential use case for Satley. That would be really cool.
I wanted to ask you guys kind of what your opinion is, because I think that, do you think that it's kind of what Rhett was saying about like these Bitcoin treasury companies and holding companies, buying all of this crypto? I've always kind of been of the opinion that, okay, Michael Saylor, like, yeah, he's a Chad, but he's kind of crazy for doing it the way that he's done it. I could see adoption not looking so much like, hey, we're going to add all this crypto to our balance sheet, but we're going to incorporate blockchain tech into our business model. Like, do you think that those two kind of go hand in hand, or do you think one will, outpace the other? Because that's part of the reason, like, why I'm so bullish on Avalanche, right?
Yeah, I personally think there's going to.
Yeah, right. You go.
I think there's going to be a lot of both. I think, at least for the time being, I think the treasury companies there's going to be a lot more of them, I think, and almost all of them are and will be distressed companies, and this is their pivot. So NVIDIA prints so much money just selling GPUs that they're not going to be playing any kind of treasury game. But distressed companies that don't really have a viable business will say, okay, our viable business is, becoming a Bitcoin treasury company or other crypto treasury company. And even the OG, Michael Saylor, that is what happened with them. They had a business that he was openly like, hey, we have a bunch of cash and we have revenues, but we're not growing very well and we don't know what to do with our money. And we're getting outcompeted by Palantir. So what do we do? Okay, we'll just start buying Bitcoin and just turn into this levered Bitcoin play. So I think that we'll see a lot more of those. It'll be mostly distressed companies. And that's great. That's like a way for those companies to turn into something viable. It's a very different type of company that is going to be building utility on the blockchain. And they are, I think, already emerging, and they're going to be all over the place. So is it Sony announced its own chain? Robinhood announced its own chain. There's lots of those. If you look at what Larry Fink at BlackRock says, he's like, look, this is just technology. And if you think about the way that the New York Stock Exchange works, if all of these assets instead were tokenized, lived on blockchains, et cetera, it's just better tech. It cuts out all these unnecessary intermediaries, it's more capital efficient, et cetera. And so I think like all of those move in that direction. Probably every major bank ends up with a stable coin. The major banks are terrified that stablecoins are going to put them out of business, which is why the Genius Act basically banned dollar stables from giving yield, and because the banks think it'll put them out of business. But what's going to happen is they'll all have their own dollar stables, and then they'll be more comfortable now that they're competing in that marketplace, more comfortable competing in normal ways. And so I think, to me, I think especially starting with finance, there's just so much value add to the tech that we'll see it all over the place pretty quickly. They're two very different types of businesses, those that are going to be building blockchain-oriented products versus those that are treasury companies. Although, I guess those building blockchain-oriented products will also probably start accumulating some amount of crypto as well. I saw an interview with someone just this week who was kind of saying like, look, if you're JP Morgan and you own a stable coin on a certain chain, you probably don't want to own some of that chain's tokens and run validators, et cetera, as like almost like a form of like you know, security on your own product. So I think there will be some of that, but it won't be to the same level. I don't expect JP Morgan to start like buying tens of billions of dollars worth of any of the cryptos personally.
But I would just make the point, not to be too repetitive, but just because your chain has a lot of activity. So I do agree that like a lot of these companies are going to be integrating this into their business to some degree. Some of these tests are going to be obvious failures and some are actually going to work out well. But even if a blockchain gets a lot of usage, to me, it's not a foregone conclusion that means that the underlying gas token for that chain becomes highly valuable. I think a lot of this tech is just going to be like commodities. And then we're going to have some tokens that we deem valuable because we've all agreed that these tokens are valuable and we sort of trust them to be like money de facto types of tokens. So even if a like a chain that I like Avalanche does, is everywhere, that doesn't mean that AVAX can be worth a lot. I do think that, that's actually one place where you want to have the highly involved people in that project agonizing over tokenomics and narrative, because that's really important to communicate that like, hey, this should be used as, yes, a gas token, but it could also be used as a store of value and it should be used as money and so on. So yeah, I guess I'll stop there.
I think Atom is a great example, right? Great community. Like they built an awesome SDK. Everyone uses it, but there's no value driven to the Atom token because, what do you need the token for, right? Yeah.
And maybe like XRP is the opposite, right? Like I've not followed that
great point.
Super closely, but I have had people tell me like, yeah, we don't, we want to have a lot of stuff going on our chain. We don't want to be boring. And I'm like, man, look at XRP. Like it's very boring, but they've done really well just with narrative, right? So imagine if you had narrative and tech, that would be like,
yeah, dude, the narrative and tech for XRP is really simple. XRP is at like, what is it? Like $2.50 or whatever it is. And Bitcoin is at $100,000. So of course, XRP can at least get to $1,000, right? Of course. I mean, that just makes sense, right? Yeah.
But it's such a good example. I know we're laughing, but it's such a good example of the power of narrative. And I think everyone in crypto always gets mad at XRP and at other tokens that are sort of like look-alike in a way.
And the craziness of unit bias, which is nuts. I actually saw someone was suggesting a while back that Ethereum do like a 10,000 to 1 split in an EIP, just to like, hey, if everyone's going to have unit bias, why don't we just like turn this thing into like, oh, it's only $1.
I mean, it's so dumb, but it also will 100% work. Like it's so dumb, but it will work, right? Like it's kind of crazy. Dude, let me ask a question. Actually, this is totally random. XL. So when I first saw your handle, I actually thought you were a banker because you're talking XL baller, but actually you're a lawyer by day and a crypto, evangelist at night. Where did XL come from?
That's exactly where it came from. I had my undergrad was in accounting and I was going to be a CPA. So I spent all my time in Excel spreadsheets.
I see. Okay. Got it. And you still use Excel now or no? Yeah. Were you already a lawyer when you started your account or what happened?
Yeah, there's lawyers who just the name kind of just stuck. And I mean, there's lawyers who are at a desk all day, who sit all day, and there's lawyers on their feet all day. I'm on my feet all day. Doing my lawyer mode, I'm in court most of the time. So
I got it. Okay, cool. And listen, just before we wrap up, I just want to say for anyone who wants to check out Satly, just tell them one more time where to go and what they can do with it right now.
Yeah, just go to satly.com. We're in beta right now. You can go in, set up your account, and you can email friends, family, whoever, test BTC. Just send it to them like you would send a normal email. You put their email address in. You can even put a little note on there, and you can send people BTC right away. As soon as you sign up, you also are earning something called bit points. We're going to use those in the future to determine who was early, who was active, who was testing Satly, and there'll be an airdrop in the future once we get there.
Yeah, it's really cool. You can bookmark it on your phone, and there's like a spin the wheel thing that you can do once a day that gives you a bunch of bit points, which is actually pretty fun. I mean, whatever. It's better than I've been spamming all my contacts every day. They're probably annoyed by all the emails they're getting. I don't care. But then I can also spin the wheel and get extra points, which is a way to get points without bothering people, which is kind of nice.
Play spin the wheel. We got some cool ideas to earn bit points, but you can do it there. Also, if you go play like Ferdy Flip, like they've deployed to our test net, small run NFTs. If you deploy something to the chain, you'll earn a bunch of bit points as well too. So like there's bit points that we're tracking on the chain. There's bit points that we're tracking on the app, and we'll merge those together at some point. But all of that to say like, when airdrop, there will be an airdrop in the future. So
I do want to say I signed up during this shoot, and it took like 15 seconds. So that was really
15 seconds,
refreshing.
perfect.
Yeah.
And so when you get in there, just
for
go
a crypto
to
product to be that easy and user friendly is like, thank you.
Yeah, so go to you can just go to top up, and then the BTC faucets there. You can get yourself some test BTC.
Cool. Okay. Well, listen, XL, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the pod. Hopefully see you again soon at one of the Avalanche or one of the other events. Hopefully you'll join us when, things progress with Satley, and sounds like it's going really well. I'm going to follow it very closely.
I appreciate you guys having me. This was a lot of fun.